Welcome to Slight Reliability, the show about SRE, observability, and technology leadership. I'm your host, Stephen Townsend. Welcome back to Slight Reliability. I'm Stephen Townsend, and this is the show where we learn about SRE, observability, and technology leadership one episode at a time. Today, I'm joined by Helen Cuddy. Helen is an engineering leader with 20 plus years experience building and running teams across SaaS, appliances, and medical devices. Twice she's been the first engineering manager hired at a company and is passionate about how the role has an impact on the organization's trajectory. She currently leads 16 engineers across 3 teams at Unleashed Software. She's driving platform delivery, including the use of AI, shaping team culture, and pushing engagement to new highs. She's someone who balances people leadership with technical direction, guiding platform modernization and cross-functional delivery while never losing sight of the humans that do the work. How are you today, Helen?
I am good, thank you. How's it on your side?
It's good. We're just saying it's a public holiday in New Zealand tomorrow, so it's like a pseudo Friday today.
Yes, indeed.
My team was joking because we often get major incidents on Fridays, and because I called it pseudo Friday, we've got a bunch of incidents today, so they're blaming that on me.
Oh, all sorted now, end of the day, so.
Exactly. But tell us a little bit about the engineering leadership roles that you've had and your sort of journey on that. How did that come about?
I suppose my background is in medical devices primarily because I'm Irish and it's like a massive medical industry over there, particularly in Galway. So I was looking for a new opportunity. I'd been working at Fisher & Paykel Healthcare for a few years. I wanted to grow up, to go to the next level. And I saw there was an engineering manager role in a startup company. So it was a big change from having a few thousand people in one business and one site to having 20 people working on one company. So that was my first introduction to engineering management or being an engineering manager. And it was quite, I suppose, as a startup, there was like no kind of technical training. So I didn't actually do any courses on engineering leadership until maybe 3 or so years in. And then when I moved on to my next role, it was in in an appliances company. And that was like a totally flip on the training areas. So I ended up doing massive training on how to be a better leader, and I got huge insights for that. So yeah.
It must be quite challenging in a startup as your first leadership role. Yeah, as you said, in a bigger organization, there'll be lots of other leaders at least, and with a sort of more established bunch of people that you can go to and sort of see how do they do things. In a startup, I mean, what do you do? Are you just making it up as you go? Like, how did you even negotiate that?
So the company that I started in, so they had like a small manufacturing section as well, and they had no standard operating procedures, which is basically typically documented from medical devices, but they didn't have anything in place. So I was like, how do you train people up when they're like learning how to do things? So trying to like capture documentation, trying to understand how can we deliver projects. They'd never done timelines before. A lot of people there had completed PhDs in that area, or they were like really specialized in aerospace. Like one of the guys was from Japan. So like really specialized areas, but like the techniques were kind of lacking, particularly for documentation. So that was like a total whirlwind of like, we've got really regulated stuff in place to like going like, we've got nothing, make it up, like create some structure. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I joined, so that we could become compliant for ISO 9001. So yeah.
It makes me think about how I think there's an assumption that human beings have an assumption that if you get a bunch of really, really intelligent people together who know a lot about a lot of things, that they will somehow self-organize, But it's just not the way the world works from my experience. And actually you need good leaders, I think, are people who understand the system, including the people, and how to make that all work together, which is a whole skill that most people, until they get thrown in their first leadership role, probably have no experience in even seeing.
Yeah. I think there was something that happened maybe in Google or like some massive corporate building or corporation, and they ended up removing middle management and just like saying like, we like trust our people. We understand that like we believe that they can deliver what we need to get done. And basically it was chaos because nobody was like organized or structured enough to deliver things on time because, like whether they change their focuses and that, whereas actually having that structure in place really helps. So yeah, It mightn't have been Google, but it was like definitely like I remember reading years ago about like they just like thought like, oh, we don't need this middle management area at all. So yeah.
I didn't say at the start, the general theme of our discussion today is the idea of being a better leader, which is something I'm obviously personally invested in myself as part of my journey right now. One of the things that we spoke about a few weeks ago, which is one of my objectives at the moment, is about building trust in a team, which is, I guess it's complicated because you're dealing with individuals and different personalities and different communication styles. And I guess my question is, big question, there's a lot we can cover here. How do you take a team of people who maybe don't know each other yet, or maybe a team of people who don't trust each other, and turn that around? Where do you start?
I suppose there's many different ways you can approach that. So one of the first things I did when I had my new leaders was I asked everybody to write down on a post-it and say like what's important to them to be a team leader. So you could put it down and say like what's important to you for having trust within your team. So you identify lots of different areas. Like, so say for example, for what's ideal for a team leader, like our trust is like the collaboration, the respect, the, feedback, the honesty, like there's all these different things that you can do. And when you collate all that information, you just line it up. This is the workshop approach that I did. So you line them all up and then you ask them, it's like, which one is more important? Is A or B more important? And you kind of shuffle around and organize what the most important things are for that particular group of people to build trust or to kind of be a good leader. So it could be collaboration, honesty. What else is really important? Being reliable, consistently showing up, having vulnerability, leading with vulnerability, and showing that you care, you've got integrity, being authentic. So there's lots of these things that you can put down. And then when you organize them to say, this one is more important than this, or vice versa, you kind of create a list of things that they see are important to them. And the top 4 of those ones are considered your core drivers. So that's really important for you for trust, for example. If you don't have that, you're lacking something. Might be like team building. You need to have some team building events to kind of like build up that trust, have a little bit of fun. It can't always be work focused all the time. Like the best conversations, the most fun conversations are maybe when you like go off and do mini golf or do something a bit daft. If you're just having a coffee or a catch up or lunch or something like that. So having those kind of conversations, whereas everything under that group of 4, those top 4, they're kind of a nice to have, but they're not the core drivers to building trust for the team. So
along those lines, we did a workshop in my team about 4 months ago, and the intention was to build a social contract, which is like we kind of did that, right? We workshopped together what's important to us. Like we came up with a set of kind of commitments to each other. Yeah. And we actually reviewed it this week as a team after about 3-4 months. And like there's a number of things that we weren't adhering to, right? Not always meeting those things. So I know this isn't something we sort of prepared or talked about, but what would be your approach in those situations? Because we said that we would hold each other accountable, but what happened is we defined these things, moved on, didn't really look back at them.
Yeah.
And now we've come back and said, we're actually not always adhering to these things. We've definitely moved in the right direction, but there's things that we're not committing to. What would you do to sort of...
That's a really good one. We've had something similar in one company, and in one department, we didn't refer to that kind of information at all. And in another department, it was critical that on a daily basis, you're meant to be aware of what those were. Yeah, so I suppose it's like making it visible. So whether it's on your desk, is it a post-it, is it your back screen, is it like at the start of each meeting, something flashes up, just to kind of as a reminder, because out of sight, out of mind, therefore it's not critical. Or sometimes people like might put a post-it with a few little bullet points, like to kind of have one word to describe that action, to abbreviate things as much as possible. Yeah, so I would say like in your team meetings, try and have it on a regular basis, like versus like, once a week, because then it's like, I'm like, what was that again? Whereas if it's a stand-up and it's like going like, has anybody given an example of this? I think I find it easier to give examples than to do the theory of things, because I can't relate to it. It's like theoretically it's this and this, and I'm like, just give me a real example that I can relate to, and then I'm like, now I can buy in, now I can relate to it. So, yeah.
Okay. We have a daily stand-up, and actually for our team and the kind of work we do, the core thing, the most important thing actually, is that we check all of the unassigned tickets that hit our queue and alerts as well, so that we're addressing those things. Maybe before I do that, I can always share my screen and always have like a little infographic or something that those things that we agreed, as simple as possible. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Or even instead of, because I feel like sometimes people don't like to self-promote or kind of say what they've done well, but if somebody recognizes somebody else within the team of whatever you're meant to be trying to demonstrate, be like, for example, Stephen did an excellent job of that yesterday because he's done X, Y, and Z. If it was collaboration, he really helped me out. I was stuck, wasn't quite sure. Now I understand a bit better. So if people, it doesn't need to be everybody, but, like maybe one person a day, because otherwise people be like, oh, we might need to make up stuff if it's like too intense, potentially. But yeah, but definitely visible. Make it visible. Have it near a coffee machine, maybe. Everybody goes for coffee.
Yeah. So we're talking about building trust, and part of it is making sure as a group we understand what's important to us. And we haven't really talked about communication styles, because what if you've got a team where there are different people who just communicate in wildly different ways and there's misinterpretation happening?
Yes, this is one of my favorite topics. So I've mentioned DISC profiling before. So DISC is about what it stands for is dominance, influence, stability, and compliance. So there's generally 4 different stereotypes, but everybody tends to be a mix of each of them to one extreme or another. Or sometimes it might have 3 of the aspects and they're not showing up in one area. So when I was in one team, there was one guy who was a dominant personality and everybody else was a supportive or compliant personality. And his expectation, because of the way his mind is set, is that everybody should know this, like it's logical sense. I know it, therefore everybody else should know it. So he would kind of give off this vibe of like, why are you asking me? This is common sense. So therefore there was like, people were like going like, oh, he doesn't want to help me. But that wasn't the case. He actually thought that people knew what this was. So I brought in a friend who was a coach, and she did a DISC workshop with us. And we saw the split across the teams, and we saw one person was like really supportive. One person was more about the compliance, like more data focused. And through that, we kind of had quite a bit of a laugh. We realized that we only had one D person who's very decisive, very direct, compared to somebody else who's supportive, that wants to have a nice conversation, like help you out as much as possible, versus like going like, that's the way it is, like too blunt, too direct. And it was like offending people, and he didn't realize he was offending people because nobody had said that to him. So we worked through this, and we had so many different areas. So you kind of understand each other's characteristics, you understand what motivates them, you know what their strengths are, you know what they can contribute to the team. You're aware of some of their weaknesses. So a D personality would prefer a very brief overview of what the situation is, whereas a compliant person wants to have 95 to 100% of the information before they make a decision. So it's very different scales. So if those two are working together, it's just going to be a clash, because one person wants, half the information, they get a gut feel, they're like, let's just go for it. And the other person is like going like, no, we can't do that because we're not there yet. So it was like great for everybody to understand each other. And then we kind of made it a light joke that this person was a D, so therefore they were, not to take offense from when they're being blunt, or they might be like, oh, you're being like that now. And then he was like, oh, I am, yeah. So it was just kind of a self-awareness, a learning. He never meant to like appear rude to people. Like he just thought it was just a normal way to speak to somebody. So yeah, so it was quite interesting. So that is my foundation of understanding like the way people work. A lot of engineers are typically S's and C's, like those supportive or compliance. So you're working in a team, so you want to help each other out. Say like compliance people might be more analytical or regulatory kind of people. I didn't have any dominance when I actually started doing this workshop, and now it's changed because my roles have changed. So therefore I've need to step up, make decisions, be decisive, but I also have that supportive nature as well. So I think you can adapt your styles a little bit as well. So if I'm having a one-on-one, I'm not going to have my D personality where I'm like holding a meeting for 3 people or 10 people or whatever it is. I'm going to be like softer, like kind of more open for conversation versus, like I'm impacting a lot of people's time. So we're just going to be more direct, like in a bigger meeting. So
we are actually doing some not Disc, actually something similar to that in the next month, which is exciting.
There's so many different types. Like some of them are colors, but it's the same. Or there's colors, there's animals, there's, I think they say people process product as well as another version.
Yeah, I'm actually going down to Wellington where the rest of my team is
Cool.
in about a month's time. We've had a bit of a travel ban because of the whole situation overseas and fuel prices. So I finally, in August, we get to go and move around again.
On that, I was actually going to say, like, it can be quite difficult if people are working remotely and you're trying to build that trust. And I don't know, like, I've been in one company where it was cameras on as much as possible, like even if you're like with everybody, so you have your cameras on, unless if you're eating food and you'd be like going like, oh, camera off for a few minutes, or I'm not feeling 100%. But generally, cameras should be on, because I find it really hard to kind of understand somebody or read from their body language, or kind of, like they say, is it like 70 or 80% of it is through of your communication or what you're trying to deliver is through your style. And then there's a certain amount with words and a certain amount with something like your tone as well. Yeah, so cameras on is really important, especially for remote workers.
I agree. And I always have my camera on, but I'm also a person who doesn't mind being in front of the spotlight. Whereas like I meet a lot of engineers who really dislike it. And I have heard some good arguments that there's something about turning a camera on. It's different than being in person, because you're there and people can like look at you, but you don't know they're looking. I don't know. It's different than being there in person. Again, in some ways it can be more, I don't know, more vulnerable in some ways. I don't know.
Yeah, because I did a trial with one of my teams, because a few of the engineers didn't have their cameras on. And I said, okay, and the product person was there as well, and QAs and the leader. And I said, okay, for the first like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we're going to have all cameras off and just communicate as normal. And I think after 7 minutes, the product person was like, no, I don't like this. I need to have the camera on. So there would normally be 2 or 3 people that might have their cameras on, and then everybody turned their cameras on, and other people went into the meeting room, and they were like, she was just like, oh, this is so much better. So just the need to kind of have that connection, because otherwise you're just like talking to a blank screen. Like if everybody had their cameras off and you get distracted, it was like, I'm like, oh, something's popped up and nobody knows that I'm like doing my emails on the side, or, like I'm buying something online or whatever else it is. It's just that you're being fully present. So
fair enough. Yeah. Sometimes, and I'm not doing it right now, sometimes when I'm podcast interviewing, I find seeing myself and the other person actually is distracting. Sometimes I'll cover up the window with a document or whatever, so that it forces me, although you can still see me, to really listen to what they're saying. Anyway, this is a slide.
Yeah.
So let's say you've got a team of people. If you start doing some exercises so people understand each other better, start understanding different communication styles, and there's that as well. Going on to the sort of 5 dysfunctions of a team, how do you go from we are a group of individuals working for our own objectives and things that we want to achieve to I'm working for the team? You know what I mean? I think that you can work on these things, but I feel like there's a step that's missing for me. How do we go from me to we?
Ooh, I think that's an interesting one. I think maybe people need to realize, like if they're doing peer reviews and stuff, like, it's that the delivery of the team is not just as an individual, so that you need to support each other as much as possible, but also realize that you need to get your own work done. So that is quite a tricky one to kind of get the right balance on that. So say, for example, if there was like a more senior engineer or like a principal or like the most senior engineer, and the other person was away, so therefore they're stuck reviewing the more junior roles kind of work, it means that they're going to miss out on their work. So you need to have that discussion of like going like, look, we need to be fair, we need to collaborate better together. This isn't working. So I think it's just like put your hand up or say like, there's not a good flow with this, be one area, but how to work as a team. Yeah, it's like generally you have team objectives, so people would jump in to support each other. I think that's, like if in an iteration or in a sprint you say like, these are our top 3 goals, we need to deliver this, like otherwise there's risks of that. So when people understand the implications of it, it'll be like, okay, I'm going to pause my work, let people know I have to pause my work, or let the leader know. So at least you're aware then that like actually they need to support other people because the other work is more critical and it's like customer dependent and that. So yeah, so communication around that, I suppose. So.
Well, there's also structural things too. Like in performance reviews, I had some conversations about success for you is not just your ability to do things, it's your ability to enable other people as much as anything else. Or I don't know, I was trying to find ways to make it not to force the we, but to make it, this is just a base expectation. It's a bunch of engineers who work collaboratively on the same things, that if we're not building each other up, then we're not succeeding.
Yeah. So I suppose it's like the collaboration and how you can measure that as well, because that can be difficult as well. It's like, what exactly have you done? And I've actually phrased things as like a mentoring opportunity for somebody that's a bit more junior. So it's a possibility for them to step up and support others where they're not very familiar with it, potentially. So yeah, it's good to create your own goals and then kind of give guidance on the person's goals as well, of like what you want them to create as a SMART goal. Ask them an open question about like, how do they think they could be more collaborative, because they might have like another approach in how they do it. And then when it's like coming from their perspective or from their view, they're more willing to do it versus, like, you must mentor somebody. Like if I go around and tell people to mentor others, they'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that, but I prefer to do this instead. Like, it's like kind of one area is their strength and the other area is an area they really don't want to go into. So
what about more broadly? Trust is one thing, but how do you get the best out of people in your team and also get the best out of yourself? How do you do that?
Cool.
That's a really big question. I just realized I just dropped like give me the answers to the questions of life or death,
Well, it's not quite that extreme. So it's like, how do you get the best out of others, I suppose, is like, it's to do with trust, I suppose, as well, but also like asking open questions. If you've ever done your strength finder, kind of understanding what the person's strengths are. So if they really enjoy doing a certain aspect in whatever like department or coding or whatever, it's like that's something they're really passionate about. If they continue working on that, they'll be able to do really well. Whereas if you put them into an area that they really do not enjoy, they're going to be resistant against that. So they're not going to have as much motivation or as much passion around that. So, and also with the DISC profile, you can kind of see what will motivate people and just like check in to make sure that is actually what motivates them, because it's a bit of a generalization as well. I've had the unfortunate experience in one company where I was told that I needed to learn how to code a program so I could create a tool for injection molding. And I was like going like, we normally have suppliers do that. I do not want to learn that. Like it's a waste of my time and a waste of resource. And my manager had said, no, this is what you need to do. And I was very resistant against it, but I had to do it. I had to tick that box. So I wasted a few weeks. I actually did it, but I spent a lot of time training up how to learn the code, how to program the tool, how to change the drill bits, how to work the tool, how to get a successful like tool out in the end that could be injection molded. And then I was like, that's done. Never doing that again. So it was a waste, so to me, like there was no benefit for him. There's no benefit for me. I've done something that it's not my growth path, the way I want to go in the future. So yeah.
That's interesting. What was the justification? That just to prove that you knew how it all worked, or what?
I think they might have had a skill sets or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but he thought that this would be a great experience for me to do that. And I was like saying like, no, I don't think it is. We typically get people to machine our equipment externally, so or make our tools externally. So like, I don't really see the point in it. But it was like, when like, oh, you need to learn how to use that tool or that equipment. And it's like, I don't really. So was it once off? So I suppose just like being realistic on like when people create goals, is it like going to be, will they get to work on it in the next 3 months, the next 6 months, or the next year? Otherwise, don't create a goal that's not going to happen for 6 to 12 months. You need to have something that's a bit more relevant to the time frame, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, focus on people's strengths, what they enjoy, and because then they'll start thriving in that as well. So.
A slight tangent with goal setting. Often companies ask you to write goals for 12 months at a time.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because a lot can happen in 12 months. As often, how many times you get at the end of the year and realize, we've restructured, our team directions changed twice, the products have changed, projects have changed. So then you could either write super generic goals which can cover all possible changes in the future, which are kind of pointless, maybe, or you can get too specific and realize and then it has to change. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think like it's really kind of relevant right now because a lot of people are at that stage of like the annual goals. But I think like overall it was like, say for example, we need to use accelerate with AI. So it's how are you going to do that with the team? So you break it down in points. So it's like in the first quarter, this is what I'm going to try and do. In the second quarter, I'm going to try and measure the improvements. You know, in the third quarter, I'm going to demonstrate this, you know, like whether you're doing knowledge sharing. So you kind of break it down into measurable areas and they can pivot a little bit because I've gone through this in my current company. It was like going like everybody needs to be using it, but they rolled out AI usage over so long that not everybody could use it in the first quarter. So we're like going like, well, we can't meet that goal because not everybody has a license yet. So it's okay. We're going to change that to like within the second quarter they can do it. So I found using AI to help create SMART goals is also quite good. So you can kind of give it a general prompt of where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do and what your strengths are and what the outcome you want to have, and it can kind of rephrase it and break it down as well. So,
Okay, interesting.
I'd probably touch on the bringing the best out of people. So some of them is like the beliefs that people have in themselves, and it's really important to see the potential that people have. So people create their own mindset of where they're at and what they're capable of, and you know, like, oh, I'm an engineer, I do software, therefore I would like fit inside this box, and this is where I belong, and everything else. And sometimes they create a mindset that this is where they need to be, and I'm saying that because I was like that. It's like on medical devices, I need to stay within this area. And I had one engineer, and he was going through personal difficult time, and he was coming into work and he was working really well, but a lot of people were saying like, you know, like he was managed to do all this analysis, fantastic work, and so he's getting feedback from like chief engineers and, you know, the product people, everybody else is going like, this is fantastic work. I'm like going like, oh, you're getting all this recognition for all the work you've done, and he's like going like, I don't think it's enough. And I'm like, well, you can think that, but if other people are recognizing you, you know, like there's obviously something true there. So I think they say if you hear something 3 times from different people, therefore you might need to reconsider what you're thinking yourself. So in the end, it was like going, well, you're going to believe that you're only this because, but like you've got the ability to change the belief in yourself if you want to, but it's only when you change that belief that you'll see your possibilities. And I feel like I've said that really badly, but you limit your potential based off your beliefs. Like if I said, oh, I'm only going to be an engineer, the max I'm going to get to is this, and I keep saying that, that's all I'm going to go to, because I'm not going to thrive or strive to get any higher because that's where I think I'm limited to. So it's just, yeah, listen to other people, I suppose. Sometimes take it with a pinch of salt if it's a bit negative because they only have a certain view of things, but just kind of believe in yourself and reframe things in your mind as well. I do reframing a lot for good and for bad, but, you know, like it's, you know, it's like seeing the silver lining in some situations, and yeah, just like listening to what you say in your head a lot, because that will kind of really control. It can like really kind of drag you down with your inner critic, or it can like, you can say really nice things. Like, so one of my tips or things to do would be like speak to yourself like you would your best friend. I didn't do that for a long time. It was very critical, very like, oh, that was a stupid thing, you know, like really negative self-talk. And then it was like change that around to be positive and, you know, like therefore, because you listen to yourself the whole time. So at least make it a positive, realistic, well, potential framing.
I've been doing counseling actually recently just to help me be better at work, basically, and better in my life in general. And a couple of mental model things I've made recently, 3 of them actually. One of them is when you get that negative self-talk, another technique is to challenge it, to have that voice, if it comes up, have that voice that says, that's not helpful, shut up,
Yeah.
and get angry at it, and it might disappear kind of thing.
Yeah.
Another one is that, I don't know whether this is based on a real study or not, but the idea is that everyone actually does the best that they can all the time, given their particular context and situation.
Yeah.
Right? And that includes yourself. So everything that you've ever done, all the things that you do, you always do your best. You know what I mean? And so there's nothing to feel like, oh, I could have done better. Oh, hang on. Just let all that go because you did the best that you could. And there's something about that which has been very freeing for me. And I'm just like, I've been doing my best, and whatever happens, I might do something dumb today. I was doing my best, and I can learn from it. And there's a lightness about that for me.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I heard something this week. I went to a women in tech event, and somebody was like saying she'd gone through quite a lot personally. Like after a storm, somebody had passed away. There was like a lot of personal issues that had happened, and at work there was restructures going on, and she was like, oh my gosh, how can I deal with this? Because, I need to be there for my family, and at work she needs to be there for work. So her her manager was really good and supported her with some of the work issues initially, but she ended up reaching out to EAP, which is great for kind of, giving, I don't want to say better, but basically people are trained to kind of communicate better with people when they're struggling versus a friend who may not be as experienced or they're not trained. So basically she realized that, or that the EAP person says, like, when you're at work, focus on the work stuff, park the personal stuff, say, this is what I need to do for my team now, like lock that time in. So basically being present. And then when you get home, be like, I'm there for my family, I'm going to hug them, I'm going to be there for them, I'm going to support them. So it's just like being very present in the moment that you're in. And I was like, I think that resonated with me a lot, because when I was going through personal stuff as well, I was in the work, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do about that? Like, like it's out of my control. And I'm thinking about these things, but when I'm at work, I should just be working. And then, like, if there's issues at work and you finish work, unless there's an incident maybe, but, just focus on the stuff that you need to do in your personal life. So I suppose that's about creating boundaries, being clear. Yeah.
Right, that, yeah. We're coming up to time, but I did want to ask one more question, which is, if there was a people leader out there who is struggling, just feeling that they're not on top of things, or there's room for improvement and they don't quite know what to do, have you got any advice for someone in that position?
Yes, I can relate to that, being there, done that. So I would potentially speak to peers if you do have peers. If you know somebody in a similar industry, reach out to them. It depends on what kind of struggles they're having, whether it's like they need to go to EAP for support as well. They can also help with kind of breaking things down potentially. So, but I would potentially reach out to peers first if you can, get their guidance, get their feel, speak to somebody that you trust or you might admire that might have already gone through that journey. So if there was like a more senior leader is like, going like, hey, do you have a half hour to catch up? Give me some tips on this. This is what I need to do. So it's kind of along the lines of mentoring, which is really, really helpful. And that would be one big tip of what I'd recommend people to do would be to find a mentor, have a regular session with them, whether it's like once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, or on a monthly basis, set a time, have your topics ready, go through them, get your guidance, because you can learn so much from them. So it's best if it's not a direct report, because it can come back specifically to the work that you're doing. So if it's like somebody in a slightly different area, they can kind of give you guidance from their perspective without kind of bringing it back to that person, that topic. And it's just like more generic supportive help. So yeah.
So I have a mentor. His name's Andrew. He doesn't work somewhere else, and I haven't caught up with him with a while, but we're catching up soon. And I've learned so much from him, and he's helped me understand my context in a way that I never could have before, and it's really changed my career, my life. And one of the caveats is, though, that he said, I will do this with you, but you need to then pass it on to the next person. And I'm not actually mentoring anyone right now. So if there is anyone out there who maybe is near the beginning of their people leadership journey, because I'm not that experienced myself, I'm sort of 3 years in, I guess I'll put my hand up and say, I don't mind being a mentor if you want to just see if we're compatible.
That's brilliant. I love it. Pay it forward. So pay it forward and helping out other people's. I had a fantastic mentor as well, and that kind of changed my career path, kind of not staying within that box. So really helpful, really life-changing. And I tried to encourage it within a workplace as well, preferably not mentoring within the team, because I said that they kind of get too much into the detail then. So if it's cross-team knowledge sharing or cross-team mentoring, that's really helpful. So
thank you so much, Helen, for taking the time to chat today, and for helping us all be better leaders, which is something that I'm always looking to do. I hope you had fun today on the show.
Yes, indeed. Learned lots.
Well, I do hope you have a good long weekend, and for everyone else out there, I hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and I'll see you all next time.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.